Hi, my name's Hassan Ali, and for my community project, I've chosen to interview two people who have made a commitment to helping individuals with disabilities experience nature: Michael Muir and John Kerr. So, first up is Michael Muir, the founder of Axis Adventure. When he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis at 15, he became paralyzed from the neck down. His horses were a significant motivator in his recovery from multiple sclerosis, and throughout his bouts with the disease, he realized that his horses acted as a service animal, and this was way more valuable than them winning ribbons in races. While Axis Adventure isn't solely focused on individuals with DMD, they offer wheelchair accessible experiences such as horse carriage rides, and they're even investing in all terrain power chairs to help people in wheelchairs experience nature as able bodied people do. So, I think to start off, I just like to know a little bit more about yourselves and the history of Axis Adventure, how it kind of came to be.
Yeah, my name is Michael Muir. I've been a horseman my whole life. I had my first pony the day I was born. I began breeding horses when I was 12 years old. When I was 15, I developed MS.
Mhm.
And unlike the typical progression of the disease, I was really profoundly affected. At 15, I was paralyzed below the neck. And it took about 6 months of in the hospital and rehab to get back on my feet and back to the stable. And my horses were a really big motivator to in my recovery from that initial bout of multiple sclerosis. And over the years of my lifetime with horses, which is now about 60 years, I realized that they played a really big role in the quality of my life and became the bridge that compensates for my lost function, as a service animal.
Mhm.
And that really was their most noble purpose, that my horses could serve, was rather than win races or win prizes and blue ribbons and money, that they could really be useful service animals for people that are struggling with the challenges of disability. So that led me to a national organization called United States Driving for the Disabled. And I was invited uh, to try out for Team USA for the first World Championship held in 1998 in Wolfsburg, Germany, for carriage drivers with disabilities. And I was later made president of that national organization.
Nice.
When I retired uh, and came back to California, our headquarters were in Kentucky in those days. Um, I wanted to set up a regional organization that could help spread this kind of work with horses. So I networked with uh, carriage drivers, carriage driving clubs here in California, and we started 20 years ago. We started Access Adventure in partnership with the Solano Land Trust on a 2,070-acre preserved open space property here in Northern California on the extreme northern edge of San Francisco Bay.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Mhm.
And just back to horses. What are some observed benefits, I think you would say, of interacting with horses and like people who come to Access Adventure? What do you notice about how they are when they're with the horses?
One of the striking things that happens is was a little unusual and unexpected. We work with a lot of neurodiverse young people, often on the autism spectrum. Many are nonverbal.
Okay.
Um, many are not very socially engaged. And even the ones who are nonverbal and not very expressive socially with other people, I find are really drawn to the horses. I've had people speak their first words with the
Oh,
horse. One mother just, burst into tears when her child was beside me, and I was teaching the child to hold the reins, and he was so excited with the speed. He would listen, and I would tell the horses. I use a driving voice, and I speak very emphatically. I go, trot, and the horses would speed up, and he would laugh, and he would enjoy that. So we were racing all around. And when we came back in, driving in, he's going, trot, trot, trot. And those were the first words he ever spoke.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, so that made me realize that a simple little thing like a carriage ride could actually be a pretty big deal in someone's
Mm.
recovery or how they interact with the world.
So I think moving on towards like the carriages themselves, can you kind of describe the process you went through and like key considerations and how you designed the carriages, made them wheelchair accessible, for example?
Yeah, I met a man and his wife. They breed ponies in Wabash, Indiana. They they went to a one-room schoolhouse. They were classmates of James Dean, the guy
Oh,
who became a famous Hollywood actor. They're very humble Quaker couple, and they breed ponies and drive horses. And they saw some rudimentary wheelchair accessible carriages that they thought were not very good. And he's kind of a tinkerer. Um, he and his wife are still alive. I think he turns 100 this year.
wow.
And he's retired from building carriages, but he's built a lot of them for me. And we work together on design kinks and tweaks to make them work. We use tractor actuators that lift heavy weights, like the front end loader on a tractor.
Mm.
And we adapted those to create a wheelchair lift that is battery operated, can be solar powered or plugged in and charged to a marine deep cycle battery, and can lift up to 600 pounds. So even a 400-pound power chair and a pretty big person can come aboard a carriage. So you're limited only by the capacity for the horses to pull the weight. And I
Okay.
breed big horses and I also drive multiples. So we designed a stretch limo version of this carriage that seats 5 wheelchairs up to 12 people. So we've used that a lot. It's been a workhorse for our program, and it makes it easy for people with a wheelchair bound person in their family to come and visit the ranch and take a ride with them. Some people are timid about their first wheelchair ride, so it helps sometimes to have parents if it's a child, or to have family members along with them. And so we've tweaked that kind of thing, but that's our standard wheelchair vehicle. It's called a Thornley carriage for the Thornley property that the Quaker couple run.
Okay, nice. Were there any like challenges you remember in the design process and like how you overcame them?
Um, well, every time you find out how something works, you think about ways to make it work better.
Yeah.
Well, over time, we've we've got the system that works pretty well, and
Okay.
um, the big problem is Jerry's 100 years old now, and there's not a lot of people building these carriages anymore. He he didn't want to patent what he did,
Hmm.
uh, but he did try to sell the business to a company to keep it going, and I think they are building his carriages, but they've gotten really, really expensive. He was building in his farm shop, and he was able to keep prices pretty affordable. And now I've gone around and I've bought all of the carriages that he's built, every one that I find that's off in a barn somewhere not being used. I buy them and bring them home and we refurbish them. And sometimes I sell them, sometimes we just put them in our carriage barn and use them ourselves. So right now we have a smaller version that's a 4 to 6 passenger wagon, carries just 1 or 2 wheelchairs at a time, and the bigger one that carries 12 passengers and up to 5 wheelchairs.
Okay. And is there like any specific training that someone would have to go through in order to I guess, operate the wagon or accommodate?
Everything is pretty simple. The training that's involved is, you really have to be a competent carriage driver, and that doesn't come quickly. The
Okay.
training of the horses is like training a service dog. It takes years to do to make the horses utterly reliable and trustworthy.
Mm,
They have to be extremely patient because it takes time to load multiple wheelchairs and lock them down. So the horses can't move during that time, and they have to be extremely responsive and obedient in any kind of situation to keep everybody safe. So that that takes a lot of time. The Just training the volunteers and things to load people, it's pretty basic.
okay.
They have to be aware of the safety considerations of the dangerous time is the loading and the unloading when the wheelchair is not fastened down. And they need to be trained on how to respond to a situation that happens during that interval to quickly keep the person safe. Um, but the training for the people and the volunteers that work to load the wheelchairs, that's not super complex. It's
Okay.
pretty simple stuff.
All right. And aside from the carriage rides, what other activities do you offer?
Yeah, we're working with a lot of neurodiverse students that come every week during the school year.
Okay.
There's a lot of older kids that uh, are not able to be ready to graduate from high school
Mhm.
at age 18, and they're given 4 more years of specialized education that's focused on preparing them for independent living, for job skills, for living independently, for managing money. And we've become kind of a part of that, of giving them work experience at our place. They'll come for as long as 4 years. And some of our students have gone on to some pretty significant kind of gainful employment. One young man on the autism spectrum, we got him a good job recommendation at the Western Railway Museum. He loved trains,
Mhm.
and he was hired there, first as a volunteer and then as a paid employee. And over time, they liked how reliable he was and how much he was into the trains. They trained him to be an engineer, and he now drives the antique trains on a 12-mile railway at the Western Railway Museum and takes people through the countryside on the antique trains. And um, that's a pretty cool success story for
That's
us.
pretty awesome. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
guess it must be.
Another one of our students went into the wine industry. He's a bottle maker, he's a label maker, and he bottles wine and puts the labels on. And he's worked in the wine industry for 15 years now.
Nice. I guess must be really rewarding for you to see these kids that you help train.
Yeah, I especially like how they engage and come alive around the horses, that the horses are really a trigger for them to connect to. And I think it plays a part in sometimes how they socialize with their peers and their teachers too.
Okay. I mean, are there any other memorable experiences or success stories that you'd want to share?
Well, one thing I like to do is I like to hitch my horses and drive them long distances.
Mm.
So um, in 2001, we hitched our horses at the Mission San Diego in California, and we drove them in wheelchair accessible carriages with a team of people from around the world, disabled people. We drove to the White House. It took
Oh,
10
wow.
months, and we drove wheelchair accessible carriages, and we stopped at rehab hospitals and uh, places where we met people that were recovering from devastating injuries. In a situation like that, where somebody's able-bodied one day and a car accident or athletic accident or something might leave them paraplegic or quadriplegic the next. That's a terrible transition to adjust to, and it frequently creates a situation where there's a lot of suicidal ideation for
Hmm.
people that just can't understand how they can make the transition from one way of life to living with a profound disability, or for others, maybe as a diagnosis of a significant illness like I have. That tends to be a slower adjustment and an easier adjustment to make than one that finds themselves paralyzed, you know, in
Yeah.
an accident. But the result is the same. You have to learn to live your life differently. And I think the most important thing that we found is that we offered we offered hope,
Hmm.
you know, that there was, you know, there was light at the end of this dark tunnel that they currently found themselves in. But here we were, people in wheelchairs or blind or whatever our disability was, and we were driving our horses across the United States, um, and having a very good time doing it. We had so much fun. We've done it 4 times. We went across Northern Europe the next year. I was with a lot of Europeans that I met on this first World Championship for drivers with disabilities. And we drove our horses across France and Belgium and the Netherlands and Germany. We did the same thing, meeting people, teaching them how we did things, and inspiring them that, you know, life's not over when you're handed a basket of lemons. You know, you got to make lemonade out of
That's amazing. Are there any challenges that you remember that you faced with those, I guess, cross-continent routes?
it. Yeah. Well, there are lots of challenges, you know, when you do something like that.
Mhm.
Um, you learn to roll with the punches. It's like my mother was alive then when I headed out. She was stressed out and worried about all these things that could happen. What it's going to happen when it rains? I said, you know, Mom, we're going to get wet and we're not going to die.
Yeah.
The path that we followed on that journey was the path that my ancestors took over the generations traveling west from the colony of Virginia in 1732. They came from Scotland to Virginia. Uh, from there, they went to Tennessee and Kentucky, then to Texas. And my great great grandmother walked with her 2-year-old daughter and 1-year-old son from Honey Grove, Texas to the Mission San Diego in California. That was
Wow.
1,500 miles she walked with a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. I told my mother, you know, my great great grandmother could do that. It's a lot harder for her than it will be for me. You know, if we're hungry, we can stop at McDonald's. And, you know, it's just not going to be as tough. And it wasn't, you know, there were people that were all along the way that would see us, you know, and realize that we were doing something big, seeing us drive from our wheelchairs and flying flags. We were obviously not going, you know, on a 10-mile drive. We were doing something big. So we got lots of invitations to stay places, sometimes to speak, sometimes to sing for our supper. You know, people would feed us, and we met a lot of fun people along the way.
That's awesome.
We met a lot of people that we felt like we could inspire and help too.
Yeah, I
So
was about to say, I'm sure you changed a lot of lives on the way.
it was. We like to think that we did, and we like to think that it was worthwhile doing, and that's why we keep doing what we do.
Okay. Is there anywhere where I could donate? Like if you have a link or
You know, that's a good question. We're just revamping our website and we'll have a donation button on there. It's not
okay.
active right now. Right. Um, so if you were really inspired to donate to us, you'd just contact us through our website or Facebook page.
Okay.
Um, yeah, well, like I just said, the website is just now getting ready to launch. So it'll be up in maybe a week or two, the initial part of it,
Yeah, yeah.
and you should be able to donate
For
through
sure.
there.
So I'll keep an eye out.
Yeah,
And
thank
then
you.
just to conclude, are there any kind of upcoming new activities that you're planning to introduce?
Yeah, we've just been engaged by Lighthouse for the Blind. We're bringing our horses to Enchanted Hills Camp for the Deaf and Blind in
Nice.
July and August. We'll take 3 of our horses there, and we provide equestrian experiences for deaf and blind children that come to the family camp with their parents. And we also attend 2 camps for teenagers that live with disabilities. And we use our horses there to take them through the redwoods above the Napa Valley.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be super cool.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And do you stay kind of up to date with new, as you could say, technologies or practices with access and inclusivity in order to tailor your experiences?
Yeah, that's a really good
Mhm.
question. We've just formed a new, help me here, diversity, equity,
Inclusion
inclusion,
and
and
impact
impact
advisory board.
advisory board
Yes.
that includes a number of my friends that are wheelchair bound or with disabilities, some of our younger volunteers that are able-bodied,
Mhm.
um, to just stay abreast of the new stuff that's out there. We're trying to expand our services beyond being limited just to horses, but to
Okay.
be able to raise money to buy assistive
Mhm.
technology for open space lands to make them more friendly and accessible to people. For instance, we'll raise money to buy beach mats for a place where you can roll a wheelchair down to the water,
Okay, nice.
or to buy a beach wheelchair that has big, fat, inflated tires that can manage the sand, so that that can be loaned to people who want to have a beach experience, not necessarily a horse
Mhm.
experience. Another thing that we're looking into is to make places more accessible, is to make sure that trails, accessible bathrooms, accessible uh, you know, camp tables and
Mhm.
things,
Mhm.
lunch picnic spots, to make sure that a wheelchair can get to them,
Mhm.
so that there are plastic snap together things that can make a rollable surface on loose sand trails that are not friendly to wheelchairs. So we can make them wheelchair accessible. So that's our big deal now, is to raise money for accessible equipment that doesn't have anything to do with
Mhm.
horses.
Okay.
Our, our program partner is the Solano Land Trust. They own the property that is our headquarters. And the executive director is really visionary about making this 2,000-acre property a, a national model of accessibility for people with disabilities. So, with that in mind, she's done things like taken casts of
Mhm.
footprints of native animals
Mhm.
that live out there,
Okay.
put them in a place that's accessible for people in wheelchairs or that are blind, that they can feel them
Mhm.
like braille and get a sense of how big a grizzly bear's paw is, how big an elk's footprint is, and what it looks like. Um, she's looking into the possibility of being able to push a button for deaf people and have an auditory explanation of what they might be seeing but not hearing,
Okay.
like uh, for blind and deaf people. So we're looking at all these different accessibility things that are not usually thought of in a rural environment,
Hmm.
trying to make outside nature open space that's friendly for people in wheelchairs or navigating any form of disability that they live with.
Okay. I think the beach wheelchair really stuck out to me the most because we went on vacation with my grandma to the beach last summer,
Yeah,
and it's tough for her to walk, so I was pushing her in the wheelchair and the beach got stuck a couple times, and it was tough. That would have really helped.
yes, and people don't realize that these, somebody's always turning their wheels about how to make this work. And this adaptive technology is out there. We want to figure out how to share it, to make people know that it's there, and
Mhm.
mostly to encourage people to get outside.
Mhm.
My great grandfather was John Muir, the famous conservationist and the
Oh,
father of our
wow.
national park system. So
That's awesome.
in my family, he was a big inspiration and a big part of, I think, why I've been encouraged to live my adventuresome lifestyle
Okay.
despite my own disability. So, with that in mind, we're always looking about getting outside and getting into nature and overcoming whatever obstacles are in our way for that. And I'm hoping that Access Adventure can continue to have an impact in that way, and to even go beyond horses, which are not for everyone. It's pretty complicated to
Mhm.
hitch horses together. It's, as I explained, it's super time consuming to train the horses and to train the people to drive the horses safely. So we're looking at all the other ways, non-horse ways, to make nature more friendly to people with disabilities too.
Yeah, it's a very honorable mission. I believe that nature is very therapeutic. It's very healing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And is there anything else you'd like to share about Axis Adventure that you haven't already?
Um,
Did-
well, we're an all volunteer
Mhm.
organization. We don't charge for what we do, so donations are always welcome. We'd love to have volunteers. If anybody's up
Yeah.
there listening to you
You-
I,
that's inspired to want to be a part of it, we have a monthly open house the third Saturday of every month, which is this Saturday, the 15th. We have open house, free accessible wagon rides. It's a good time to come out and learn about Access Adventure and see our Rush Ranch home base.
okay. I would have actually loved to come. Unfortunately, I'm going back home that day, but
Yeah,
when I'm back in California, I will most definitely make a trip up to see what you guys
yeah, you're very welcome to come. We'd
appreciate.
love to see you.
Yeah. You did not mention anything about the terrain hopper. Do you want to mention the terrain hopper?
Oh, yeah, that's another thing that we have is
Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, I will. I will.
um, yeah, we have a very high-tech four-wheel drive wheelchair that looks like the lunar lander module that the astronauts drove around the moon on. And it's got four independent motors on the four wheels, and it can go anywhere. I drive crazy inaccessible places with it.
Nice.
So we're looking at raising the money to buy these, to be able to place them in maybe the national parks or state park system where people could check it out from a ranger and be able to access park trails in a way that a wheelchair could not.
And
Okay.
even started at Rush Ranch, where there's so much
Yeah.
property around Rush Ranch.
Yeah, we have 2,070 acres. So with the terrain hopper we have there, we're going to try to use that as a pilot to show how this works to get people out on the land. And it's pretty rustic where we are. We have some high hills and things, and the terrain hopper can cope with all of that. It can go anywhere on the property. So yeah, I get pretty crazy with it myself.
I was going to say, and you've even helped other people learn how to use it who have maybe
Yeah,
hard.
I've taught two quadriplegics how to drive it that have a little use of their upper arms, and
And it works.
they manage it
Yeah.
just fine.
Okay. That sounds awesome.
Yeah,
That when you were first diagnosed with MS, I mean, having all of these technologies available, I can imagine would have been very helpful. But it must also be super rewarding that you've now brought these technologies into the mainstream and you're helping other people with their diagnosis.
well, I feel like it's the most important work that I can do. It's just more important than anything else and any kind of, you know, money making thing. I'm throwing it out there. There's lots of money in the world. I want to show people this is a good place to put it. You get a lot of bang for the buck. If we can buy this $28,000 terrain hopper and make it available to people who visit Yosemite, that they can get places they couldn't get under their own power, I think it will spread, and it can potentially go nationwide. No reason why it couldn't.
Yeah.
I'm
Great.
hoping to be able to see that happen in my lifetime.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate your time. I've learned so much. I think your work is amazing. I would definitely love to get involved, and thank you for sharing.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right.
Nice talking to you.
It's so nice talking to you too. Now I'd like to introduce John Kerr, the founder of the John Kerr Foundation. He was born with muscular dystrophy and wanted to give back to others. He was grateful for the knowledge and opportunities that made life with MD a little easier for him, and he wanted to pass it on in order to help young adults with MD begin their independent lives. He runs a 4-day camp at an accessible campground in Yosemite that provides young adults with daily sessions about how to manage their health care, go to college, find a job, find accessible housing, and he even has a dating and relationship advice session that he teaches with his wife. So you just tell me about kind of the history and the mission of your foundation?
Absolutely. So I have muscular dystrophy
Okay.
myself, and I was born with that. And about 20 years ago, I just had some motivation to find ways to give back to others. And I was always pretty fortunate to have access to all the resources that I needed to live independently, and uh, having that was a real privilege. And I saw a gap in education among young adults with disabilities. Knowing about the resources, having access to them, and being able to utilize them. So
Okay.
I started a foundation so we could find ways to, make the lives of people with muscular dystrophy, just make their lives better. Whether it's going to college or getting a job or moving out on their own, and just participating fully in society, basically.
Okay. Nice. So I know you also do a 4-day retreat to help young adults with muscular dystrophy kind of gain valuable life skills that you were talking about. So could you describe that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it takes place at an accessible campground up right near Yosemite. It's kind of in the foothills of Yosemite, and we have a group up there, usually of about 4 to 6 young adults, and we provide all their care providers, and for the most part, this is usually their first time away from home, having somebody else do their care, other than their parents or friends or family or whoever. And so, we bring them up there and we have daily sessions which teach them how to manage their health care, how to find accessible housing, learning disability rights and disability history, how to go to college, how to ask for the accommodations that you need and things like that, how to find a job and ask for your accommodations, pretty much everything it takes to move into adulthood.
Oh,
And the favorite session is always dating and relationships.
okay.
They tend to enjoy that one too. And my wife and I teach that one together. But it's over the 4 days we have roughly about 6 classes, and then we do a lot of outdoor activities too, like campfires and trail hikes and feeding animals and things like that. It's a lot of fun.
Okay. And I would love to talk a lot about all the classes, but before I ask about that, how do you select, I guess, who gets to participate in the retreat?
Sure. Well, we our age range is 16 to 22, and we usually look for applicants that are um, motivated to be independent,
Okay.
that seem to be in the right mindset to, take on that full responsibility. Um, we generally get 10 to 12 applicants, and we pick anywhere between 4 and 7. So there's not a lot of competition really,
Okay.
but we tend to take the older range first, and then save the younger ones for probably the following year if they're still interested. But yeah, that's pretty much how we do it.
Okay. And I definitely like to talk about higher education, especially with me being in university and this class I'm taking, emphasize a lot of emphasize that a lot of places aren't accessible. So for example, one of the first assignments that we had to do was walk around campus and find one example of accessible design and one example of inaccessible design. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
know, is there any like specific program or college that you would recommend for young adults with muscular dystrophy? Like,
That's a great question. I know the University of Illinois used to have a program where they had a specific dormitory where they offered care providers for the students
oh
right
wow.
there in the dorms. Yeah, so I mean that's a huge uh, portion of being able to go to school on your own is having people there built in to assist you. But as far as accessibility goes, not really. I mean, for myself, it was trying to find a campus that's not too huge so I
Mm.
could get around in my chair. Flat, a flatter campus. One of the ones I considered coming out of high school was UC Berkeley, but I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's built up into the hills,
Yeah, I've
and
heard
there's
of that.
a lot of hills and rather cold. So it didn't work out for me. I wound up going to Sacramento State, which was very flat and had a more mild climate, and
Mhm.
better suited my needs. But I know it's very specific to the individual and what their abilities are. But with all the laws that are in place, I mean, all publicly funded universities have to be accessible
Yeah,
nowadays. So you can pretty much go wherever you want as long as you have the right supports in place.
that's good to hear. It's, I guess, made strides in accessibility.
Definitely. Still room to grow, of
Yeah,
course.
of
But
course.
yeah.
So then how do you kind of support participants in navigating like accommodations and services that are available to them?
Every campus generally has a disability student services office.
Mhm.
And so I encourage them to get connected with that office and seek out the accommodations that they need, whether it's a note taker or priority registration or, a special desk or extra time on tests, things like that, that could help them, succeed in class.
Solid. Yeah, I've been a note taker one time, and I
Okay.
figured if I take notes already in every class, I should help out and share because it could definitely really help someone out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I
Just use the carbon paper,
guess,
and that way they get a copy, you get a copy, and
yeah.
hopefully they can read your writing, right?
No, I'm lucky I have neat handwriting.
Good.
And then I guess kind of after high school, you have employment. So what are some common challenges that you see participants find in the workforce?
Well, there's a lot of stigma,
Mhm.
surrounding people with disabilities and what their abilities really are. I believe only 13% of the disabled population is employed,
I didn't know.
and yeah, that is just a horrendous number. I start by encouraging people to find a field that they're interested in, obviously, And then it's all about whether or not you choose to disclose your disability to your employer. And if you do, seek out accommodations. Like myself, I work for the state of California, and some of the accommodations I have are a larger cubicle, so I can have some room for my power chair. And I also bring a care provider with me to
Okay.
work to help me, like, with all my personal care needs. And, so I have to have room for them in my cubicle as well. And I use a voice program because I cannot type. So that's another accommodation. I also have a space heater in my cubicle. So it does get cold in the office, and that's also considered an accommodation. Um, so there's plenty of accommodations that people with disabilities are entitled to. You just have to ask and go to the HR, and they're required by law. As long as you can perform the job duties, make that they're required by law to take away whatever barriers are in your way
Mhm.
to be able to perform the job.
And do you have like any partnerships or networks with employers who are inclusive and like supportive of employees with disabilities?
Not personally.
Okay.
Um, I do know of a lot of agencies, like, for instance, in California, the Department of Rehabilitation is the department that can help people. They support you all the way up until the time of employment. So what they do is they can help fund college, and then they can pay for interview clothing. They pay for bus passes and taxi rides to and from interviews and things like that. And they can help you get all set up with your accommodations. They even have a job coach system for some people that might require that to get up and running, and once you're employed, their work is done. But there are other agencies that can support people, during employment, like
Okay.
the job. There's one called the Job Accommodation Network. Just that's where people can go to seek out what their rights are, and if they're having issues with their employer, find an intermediary and things like that.
Mhm. Okay. That's really good network to have. Do you find that maybe a lot of people with disabilities don't know about these resources or don't know how to access them per se?
Absolutely, yeah. Unfortunately, even in our tech savvy age, these young kids, the main problem is people with disabilities are growing up, and when they're kids, they're always, uh, you know, kind of inundated with the idea that they're broken
Hmm.
and they need to be cured or fixed or healed, and so they don't ever think beyond that and have any pride about their disability or acceptance of their disability. And so when it comes time to hit the real world, so to speak, they're not mentally prepared, and their parents haven't bothered to do any research for them, or no one in their life really has taken the time to present these ideas to them that of what they're actually, what they possibly can do with their lives. So that's where the gap is, and that's sort of where our organization, our retreat comes in, is to sort of bridge that gap between not knowing anything and presenting at least the beginning information that they might need.
Okay. I know you said at the camp you talk about relationships and dating, but do you also cover kind of like your relationship with yourself, your relationship with your disability, like how to manage that?
We do. We talk about disability pride, and there's something called the social model and the medical model of disability. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but that is just think of it as a side-by-side chart. On the left side, we have the medical model, and that is it's an approach to disability, like I mentioned, where you you are only valuable if you are cured. If it's all about medication, and it's all about doctors focusing on the barriers. And the problem is the disability is the problem. However, on the social model side of the chart, the problem is society and access. Having a disability is not a problem. The problem is being able to access everything that you need as a person who has to live with the disability, and that is the social model approach to disability. So I try to inundate them with these ideas that having a disability is not a negative thing. It's just a part of who you are. I consider myself just a person who lives with a disability. It's obviously a big part of who I am, and but I don't define myself by that.
Okay.
And I try to encourage them to take that approach as well.
Okay. Yeah, it's a very healthy relationship, I can imagine, that you try to instill with them and their disability.
Yeah, we try to have a lot of good discussions.
Mm-hmm. And I guess then on the topic of relationship with others, what advice do you give to participants about maintaining and building healthy relationships with other people?
Well, it starts with, I always say it starts with loving yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, nobody can love you if you don't love yourself. And so you have to look inwards first, and you have to like what you see. And when you like what you see and feel comfortable in that, others start to notice. And that's when you'll have that sort of aura, for lack of a better word, to attract a mate. I always encourage younger people to go out in groups and make a lot of friends. And, that's usually how you develop friendships, and relationships come from that. If you're going more like the dating website approach, just to be upfront about your disability, and don't no surprises, so nobody gets hurt, whether emotionally or physically or anything like that. And it's just all about self-confidence, and obviously taking care of your hygiene and things like that. And to find a partner is it's a process, but it's one that can be enjoyed.
Are there any specific resources, support groups maybe that you recommend for kind of navigating relationships for individuals with muscular dystrophy?
Well, I'm a Facebook guy because I'm old. So there is some groups on Facebook that support young adults who are living with MD, and I usually direct them there. There's some younger folks in there that are their peers, and they can talk about things like dating blocks and experiences that they've been through, and what to watch out for, or even success stories. That can be encouraging for folks to read about different success stories. And there's a lot of couples in the world, obviously thousands, if not tens of thousands, living with MD. Maybe one has an able-bodied partner, or they both have MD or whatever. But I try to steer them towards those types of groups where they can see examples and ask questions. That's the best way to learn.
Okay. And do you have any stories of participants who have found success and happiness in their personal relationships?
Not specifically that have come to our retreat.
Okay.
However, I do know I know scores of people who have had success, whether it be meeting somebody on the job or just going out and doing things, bars and church and coffee shops and wherever you meet folks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know quite a few success stories that I like to share.
Would you mind maybe sharing one that speaks to you the most, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me think of a good example besides mine.
I'd love to hear about
um,
it too.
well, I could tell you my story.
Okay.
Start there. Um, so I met my wife in 2010 on a camping trip. It was a camping trip that I had been taking for like 5 or 6 years with a group of friends, some able-bodied, some not, and we go up to the hills every year and just party and have a good time. And she came up there with a friend of a friend, and we connected right away over music and books and chatting and things like that. And the second day of the camping trip, I asked her if she would take me in the pool, if she'd be interested in taking me in the pool, and she said, "Of course," and she did, and we sort of fell for each other right there. It took There's a large age difference between us. It's about 15 years, so it took me a while to be okay with that, and so I sort of had this blockade up of not wanting to hurt her and not wanting to make any wrong moves, so to speak. Seemed a little too good to be true at first. But she was very persistent, and that was summer of 2010. And by the summer of 2011, we started dating, and we got engaged in 2013 and got married in 2014. And here we are 10 years later and built quite a life together. Yeah.
That's an amazing story. Got me smiling.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah. It was a process. Like I said, we had the age difference, and, she's such a wonderful person and just super smart and really hot and just I hit the jackpot.
That's amazing.
And we've been able to build a really good life together. We both work for the state. She's a top researcher in data for the state, and we have a little dog, and we bought a condo and live, right downtown in Sacramento, and yeah, just living the dream, as they say.
It's really good to hear. So I guess
Very blessed.
from of finding your life partner, what kind of achievements or milestones are you most proud of, maybe since starting the foundation?
Yeah, personally, or professionally, like, what do you mean?
I feel like both are okay. Like anything that just comes to your head immediately that you feel comfortable sharing.
Sure. Well, I'm very proud of the work that we do with the
Mhm.
foundation. When I first started it, the first 10 years, we were incredibly small. I wasn't actually able to launch our retreat until our 12th year because of funding, and finding an appropriate campsite and all those things that go into it. So for a while there, we sort of stumbled along and did like one little fundraiser, and then we'd give out a scholarship, or we'd buy some medical equipment for someone, and that would be our activity for the year. So I'm really proud of the fact that we've been able to start the retreat. This summer, will be our seventh retreat that we're doing, and I am very proud of that fact. I'm also proud of the fact that being able to stay healthy and live a full life and enjoy everything around because, I was given 6 months to live on 3 different occasions as a child. And finally, the doctors just gave up, saying things like that. And so I know life is fragile, and
Yep.
I try to live every minute as full as I can. We're season ticket holders for the Sacramento Kings, and we have season ticket holders to the Philharmonic, and we like to go out to nice restaurants and try new stuff, and we try to stay as busy as possible. So I guess I'm most proud of just living a full, happy life.
Nice. I mean, it sounds like you've built a very fulfilling life for yourself, and you're also helping other people who are in your shoes kind of build a life that they would be proud of as well.
That's the goal. Absolutely. Is to just hit their full potential.
Mhm. What are some of the kind of biggest challenges you faced with your foundation?
The foundation itself, mostly it's funding.
Okay.
That's always a problem in the nonprofit world. You have to constantly knock on doors and bang on offices and all those types of things. But we seem to always find a way. People do believe in our cause, and we do get it done. I am in the process of trying to establish an endowment right now for
Okay.
the foundation so we can. I really want to leave a lasting legacy of the things I put together here. So working on that. Another problem is finding volunteers. For our retreat, especially, we have to have people out there who can help these young adults with their daily care and help in the classes and things like that. So that's always a challenge. I'm actually in the middle of dealing with that right now. Is
Okay.
trying to put together a group for this summer. So yeah, that's some of the stuff that we face.
Okay. And what kind of training do volunteers need in order to participate and accommodate participants with different needs?
We like folks who have some experience either in the healthcare field or uh, like a summer camp counselor, things of that nature. But if not, we do 2 Zoom trainings.
Okay.
I do have a guy, our vice president of the foundation. He is the head of our. We don't call them counselors; we call them assistants,
Okay.
because we want the kids to have as much agency as possible. But we do a couple of Zoom trainings where we just talk about, what the expectations are, what kind of hiccups might happen or things to watch out for, just safety first. And, we try to pick participants for our retreat that can explain their care so they can tell you exactly what they need. And so all you got to do is, be able to listen well and, be able to perform the task and just someone who's interested in doing something good.
Okay. And I guess what kind of challenges are faced by participants at the camp, and how do you and the assistants address them?
Uh, I don't know that we've had a lot of challenges
That's good to hear.
um, on their part. Yeah, we haven't had anyone who's like missing home or anything like that. We've had a couple of personality conflicts or whatever, but that comes in large groups. That sometimes you just gotta nip it in the bud and move on. It's nothing that stands out though. Nothing disruptive or major or sad or anything like that. Yeah, we've
Okay.
been very fortunate
That's
in
really,
that area.
and I guess what are kind of your future plans for the foundation? Aside from, I know you mentioned the endowments, but anything else that like you really want to do?
Yeah, I'd like to get to a point where we have enough funds to offer like different types of retreats.
Yeah.
A lot of times parents of younger kids that have MD, I'm talking like little kids.
Hmm.
The parents are doing all their care, and there's not a lot of support within the healthcare system for them to have a break. And so I'd like to set up, as part of the endowment, retreat excursions, like for the families to, either go to a concert or go to a sporting event or, whatever they choose to do. I'd like to be able to be in a position to be able to kind of help fund that sort of thing.
Hmm. And I guess I'm gonna upload this to a private playlist where all of the community projects are going to be. I'll definitely send you the video. So to anyone who's watching this, I guess to me is how can we donate? Is there like a link that
There is. We're actually in the
okay.
process of rebuilding our website right now.
All
It
right.
should be up and running in about a week from today.
Okay.
So today is the 10th. So it should be up by June 17th
Okay.
uh,
Keep an eye out.
of 2024. And that would be johnkerrfoundation.org. That's
Okay.
our website. And on there, you can donate through PayPal or Zelle, or we have a capture form where you can fill out your information and we can reach out to you directly and talk about different methods, credit card, or you can mail a check to the foundation. There's a lot of different ways to donate.
Okay. And I guess in the camp, how do you stay on top of, I guess, emerging technologies and practices with accessibility to kind of improve your offerings continuously?
That's a great question. So I have two co-facilitators that
Okay.
help me teach the class, and they are also adults living with MD, and so and they're a lot younger and a lot more tech savvy than I am. So I put them on that project, and I rely on them to bring fresh ideas every year that we can update our curriculum and we usually send our participants home with a flash drive that has a lot of resources on it. And so, we like to update that every single year and keep everybody in the loop.
Okay. That's good. Then is anything you want to share that you haven't mentioned yet?
I don't think so. I think this is a worthwhile project,
Okay.
and I'm happy that you reached out. I would like to know a little bit more about your class, what
Yeah, for sure.
exactly it is.
So
Yeah.
it's called Disease Mechanisms and Therapies. It's a physiological sciences class, and the goal is so we focus on a Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and
Uh
we
huh.
learn like a lot about it, both in the medical aspect and the, I guess you could say, social aspects. Like we learn about multidisciplinary care, kind of what families kind of go through, what care they seek, diagnosis timeline, and then the underlying genetics of that. I think that's in the hope that we can connect with the more personal, the more human side of diseases, as well as apply the scientific knowledge to other diseases.
Sure. I see. And what is the overarching major? Is it, are you, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm a molecular bio major, but this is a physiological sciences class. I'm just taking it for upper division, like elective credit. It's a major elective, and I'm honestly really
Okay.
glad I took the class because we have experts speak on their works. Like we'll have cardiologists, geneticists, as physiotherapists, they all kind of come together, all of these different areas of expertise kind of come together and they discuss the common cause, which is DMD. So we get to hear a lot of diverse perspectives.
That's outstanding.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's such a great resource to be able to do that at UCLA too, because I know they have a research center there
Yeah,
that does a lot of work around EMDs and Duchenne specifically. So good for you. That's excellent.
appreciate it. All right. Well, I want to thank you for your time. I really enjoyed learning about your foundation, the work you do, and how you kind of help young adults transition to real life.
I really appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having an interest.
All right. I definitely will be in touch. And until then, have a great day. Happy anniversary, of course.
Thank you so much, and good luck on your finals.
Thank you.
All right, have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for taking the time to listen to these voices share their insights and experiences with changing the lives of people, not just with muscular dystrophy, but with a broad scope of disabilities. I'm grateful to be able to share their stories and raise awareness for their projects. As they mentioned, their programs are completely funded by donations, so please click the link in the description below to donate. Thank you.